Evan since March of 2023, and Alsu since October of 2023. Russian authorities arrested them, convicted them in show trials, and sentenced them to long prison terms with absolutely no legitimate reason whatsoever, none. Paul, a former Marine, was in Russia for a wedding. Evan, a journalist with a Russian, in Russia, was in Russia, assigned by the Wall Street Journal. Alsu, also a journalist, was in Russia to see family. All three falsely accused of being spies. And Vladimir, who was a Russian citizen by birth and holds an American green card, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and was a pallbearer of my friend John McCain's funeral with me. He spoke out against Putin's regime, and for that he was convicted of treason. And now, their brutal ordeal is over, and they're free. Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey, and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their families. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined in difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again. All told, Russia has released 16 prisoners. 8 Russians who are being held in the West will be sent home as well. These 16 prisoners from Russia that Russia has released include 4 Americans, 5 Germans, 7 Russian citizens who are political prisoners in their own country. One of those Russians runs a human rights organization, Memorial, which won a Nobel Prize in 2022. Putin threw him in prison for voicing opposition to the war in Ukraine. 4 others work with Alexei Navalny, a political opposition leader who died in Russia prison this year. Now they can live safely abroad and continue their work of advocating for democracy if they so choose. This deal would not have been made possible without our allies. Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey, they all stepped up and they stood with us. They stood with us. And they made bold and brave decisions, released prisoners being held in their countries who are justifiably being held, and provided logistical support to get the Americans home. So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world. Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon, especially on matters of great consequence and sensitivity like this. Our alliances make our people safer, and we began to see that again today. Let me say this. It says a lot about the United States that we work relentlessly to free Americans who are unjustly held around the world. It also says a lot about us that this deal includes the release of Russian political prisoners. They stood up for democracy and human rights. Their own leaders threw them in prison. The United States helped secure their release as well. That's who we are in the United States. We stand for freedom, for liberty, for justice, not only for our own people, but for others as well. And that's why all Americans can take pride in what we've achieved today. I want to thank everyone in my administration who helped make this happen. Our work did not start just on day one. It started before day one. During the transition, I instructed our national security team to dig into all the cases of hostages being wrongfully detained, which were inherently, well, we inherited them from the prior administration. I wanted to make sure we hit the ground running, and we did. As of today, my administration has brought home over 70 Americans who were wrongfully detained and held hostage abroad, many since before I took office. Additionally, I issued an executive order in 2022 authorizing penalties like sanctions and travel bans on those who hold Americans against their will. And my State Department has introduced new warnings for Americans about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Deals like this one come with tough calls, and there are never any guarantees. But there's nothing that matters more to me than protecting Americans at home and abroad. And so we'll continue to work for the release of all wrongfully detained Americans around the world. Let me end where I began, with Paul, Evan, and also Vladimir and their families. They never gave up hope. We can't imagine what they've been through, all of you. Matter of fact, this lady right here, I think, was living in the Oval Office with us for a while. All kidding aside, can't imagine their joy right now. They're home. Tomorrow's a big day. The 13th birthday of Miriam. Miriam, where are you? Come here. You all know we have a tradition in the Biden family. We sing happy birthday on any birthday. You ready? All of you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miriam. Happy birthday to you. Remember, no serious guys till you're 30. God love you.
Okay, President Biden, with the families there of those imprisoned in Russia, recounting how this all came together. To discuss further, let's bring in our panel. We have retired Brigadier General of the U.S. Air Force, Combat C-17 Commander, and U.S. Deputy Military Representative to NATO and Newsmax contributor Blaine Holt, along with Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Army, retired President of Project Sentinel and the 2020 Trump campaign National Security Advisor, Tony Shaffer. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. A lot of breaking news going on today. I'd like to get your reaction, Tony, to the president's remarks there. He talked about the credit to the allies, the 7 nations that came together to make this happen. My question to you, as you look to is a prisoner swap here, at what expense, at what risk and cost is this to the United States when you engage in a move like this?
Well, it's great for the families who have got Paul Whelan returned, and to the reporter, Gershkovich, I think, or I might get his name wrong. I apologize, but it's great for them. It's bad for us, and here's why. 7 nations shouldn't take and have to work what we should be able to do as a nation. During the Cold War, I'm a Cold Warrior. I came up through it. The United States was able to negotiate these sorts of things directly with the Soviets. So it speaks volumes of the fact that we have to have, as Biden said, our allies work on our behalf, because Joe Biden and his band of high school debaters have so badly damaged the relationship with the Russians. I'm not saying we should embrace Russia. I'm saying we should have an ability to actually use our strength and our prestige to do something. So the fact that we couldn't do that, it took years to negotiate this through third parties, does not speak highly of Joe Biden and what Kamala Harris regime would look like as well. So God bless those who have been returned. God bless those Russian dissidents. I've said this before. Putin is a thug. He is. But it doesn't change the fact that we should be negotiating from a position of authority and strength, instead of having to work with allies through third parties to do what we should be able to do.
General, what kind of message does this send to these countries, our adversaries that may be looking to imprison Americans who are overseas, whether journalists or other travelers, in terms of the leverage that they might receive as a result of imprisoning them and ultimately engaging in a prisoner swap?
That is something we've got to watch very carefully. And I join Tony in saying, hallelujah, we're going to get these 2 home. That's great news, and so good for their families. However, this is also the same administration, let's not forget, that paid $1.2 billion per hostage to Iran in releasing funds. It's not good for Americans who are traveling abroad. And to all Americans, if you are in a country that is politically on the edge, you need to be very cautious with your safety and the risks that you're taking going into other countries. We are literally on the brink globally, and this does create rogue states that are going to be more enthusiastic about trying to roll up Americans to garner some sort of leverage. It's just the fact of the matter. And so, the next stop is going to be the hostages and this mix with Iran and Israel. And how is that going to affect our hostages overseas? We need to hear more about that. But it's very dangerous for wrongfully detained Americans.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. A lot to get to, but thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Take care.